Buckle up, everybody, because we're diving deep into the maelstrom of accusations swirling around Sean Diddy Combs today. And let me tell you, this is not your typical day at the celebrity gossip mill.
Not even close. This is the real deal. We're talking charges with serious weight behind them, the kind that could mean a life sentence. Racketeering, sex trafficking, kidnapping. It's a lot.
We've got stacks of news articles here covering it all. And what's wild is this all kind of blew up in just the last year.
Yeah.
But to wrap our heads around just how huge this is, we got to break it down piece by piece.
Absolutely. You can't just glance at the headlines and think you get it. The accusations against Combs are seriously messed up. And they really make you think about power, like who has it and how they use it, accountability or the lack of it, and the dark side of the music biz that nobody really talks about.
So rewind with me to September 16th. Picture this Diddy gets busted at a swanky Manhattan hotel. Now you might be thinking, okay, another rich dude, another night gone wild. But hold up, because here's where it takes a hard left.
The charges they slapped him with are about as serious as it gets. And the fact that they denied him bail not once but twice, that's saying something.
It's practically unheard of for someone swimming in his kind of cash to get bail denied once, let alone twice. Makes you wonder what the prosecution's got up their sleeve. What kind of evidence could be so strong that a judge is convinced he's a flight risk or even a danger to others?
Exactly. It's like they're saying, we're not messing around. We think these accusations are legit, and he's not getting off easy. And get this, instead of some cushy holding cell, he's stuck at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. Not exactly known for its 5-star accommodations.
Let's be real clear here. This isn't about a slap on the wrist. We're talking about allegations of abuse and exploitation that were built into the system. And it could mean life-changing consequences for Combs and anyone else involved. But even with how shocking this arrest was, it's not like it came out of nowhere. It's like the last domino to fall after a whole year of these accusations getting heavier and heavier.
True that. We gotta zoom out and look at the whole timeline because that's how you understand what's really going on. Think back to late last year, Cassie Ventura. You might remember her from her Bad Boy Records days. She filed a lawsuit against Combs.
This wasn't just any run-of-the-mill lawsuit either. The details that came out, especially that hotel surveillance footage that somehow made its way to the public, seriously disturbing stuff. It showed a whole other side of Combs, one that didn't match the image he's crafted for himself.
And that's when the floodgates kind of burst open. After Cassie stepped forward, it was like a wave of other women came out with their own stories. Some of these accusations went back decades.
It was like this pattern started to emerge. Allegations of drugging, sexual assault, coercion, intimidation. List goes on.
And the really unsettling part is how similar all these accusations are. Different women, different times in their lives. But they all paint this really messed up picture.
And that picture gets even darker when you add in the accusations about these freak-off parties. And let me tell you, party doesn't even begin to cover what's being described.
You're right to hone in on those parties. They're key to understanding what these accusations are really about and the patterns of behavior they point to. These weren't just like your typical college kegger gone wrong. We're talking about events that were supposedly planned out down to the last messed up detail. Like, picture this Combs, people booking out entire floors of hotels, allegedly bringing in sex workers. And get this, the indictment even says they had IV drips on standby for people to recover afterwards.
Wait, IV drips. It's like something you'd see in a movie about rock stars in the 80s, except this is real life.
Yeah.
And it just throws this whole harmless party image out the window. That kind of planning, that's cold, man.
No kidding. It makes you think about the power dynamics at play, right? Like, this wasn't just a bunch of people letting loose. This was something else. And it gets even more disturbing when you look at what they found when they raided Combs' places.
Okay, yeah. Things get kind of surreal here. We're talking 3 AR-15 rifles.
And over 1,000, hold on, did I hear that right? 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant.
1,000?
Yeah.
You gotta be kidding me. What does someone even do with that much? I mean, come on. It's like they stumbled onto the set of some bizarre movie.
Yeah.
What we're seeing here is more than just someone acting up. It's like there's a pattern, a system almost.
Exactly. And it forces us to ask this really uncomfortable question. How does someone with this much money and pull someone as famous as Diddy, how do they keep a lid on this kind of stuff for so long?
It really makes you wonder who else was in the know. Who might have looked the other way? Did his fame and fortune make him untouchable? These aren't just questions for this case either. They're being asked across the board.
For sure. This case throws a really harsh light on that whole dark side of power and celebrity, where people can use what they've got to silence anyone who tries to speak up.
Yeah.
And then you've got Shine Barrow. He's a former bad boy artist who's got his own history with Diddy.
Right, Shine. He was involved in that club shooting back in '99 with Diddy and J-Lo. He did 10 years in prison for that.
And he came out recently saying that Diddy basically threw him under the bus, gave false testimony against him, said it destroyed his life.
Let's talk about adding fuel to the fire. So now we're saying that someone might have spent a decade behind bars because of what Diddy did.
Makes you wonder if this whole thing with Diddy using his influence to protect himself, even if it hurts other people, makes you wonder if that's not a new thing for him.
It's a lot to take in. But here's the kicker. Shine says he's forgiven Diddy. They've even been seen hanging out together.
Yeah, it's a tangled web.
Mm-hmm.
And it brings up all these questions about forgiveness and taking responsibility. But let's switch gears for a sec and look at how Diddy's reacting to all this.
Well, at first he came out swinging, denied everything, called it a smear campaign.
But then that Cassie Ventura footage came out and it changed things.
Yep, he ended up saying sorry for that incident, but he's still fighting tooth and nail against all the other accusations. Yeah. And his lawyers, they're working overtime to discredit everyone accusing him and downplaying the whole thing.
Well, yeah, that's what high-priced lawyers are paid to do. But what gets me is this case feels bigger than just legal games.
Totally. It's like we're watching this reckoning unfold right before our eyes. Like all that unchecked power and silencing victims. It's finally coming home to roost, no doubt about it. This could be a defining moment. But let's bring it back to the legal stuff for a minute. With accusations this heavy, what kind of trouble could Diddy be looking at if this actually goes to trial?
Well, if he's found guilty, and that's a big if, remember, Combs is facing at least 15 years behind bars.
15 years.
Yeah.
Not a slap on the wrist. That's life-changing stuff.
Yeah.
Especially for someone who's used to having it all.
You got that right. Plus, we haven't even talked about what this could do to his reputation.
Mm-hmm.
His brand. Diddy built an empire on his image, and that could all come crashing down.
Goes to show that money and fame can only protect you from so much. But you said if he's convicted, this isn't exactly an open and shut case, is it?
Not even close. This is just the beginning. It could be months or even years before this even goes to trial. These things can drag on forever, especially with high-profile cases and lawyers who can play hardball.
And let's not forget about plea deals, mistrials, hung juries. The legal system is a maze. But even with all that up in the air, it feels like Diddy's world has been rocked to its core.
No question. And I think this whole thing is bigger than just Diddy. It shows you how dangerous power can be, especially when there's no one to keep it in check.
And it's a serious reality check for places like the music industry and Hollywood. They often seem to play by a different set of rules when it comes to accountability.
That's the truth. They've definitely had a history of protecting their own, even when these really serious accusations come up. But it does feel like things are shifting, and this case could give others the courage to come forward and fight for justice, not just in music, but everywhere.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the unraveling of Diddy, what's the message we want to leave people with? What's the big takeaway?
To me, it's about asking those tough questions.
Yeah.
How do we hold people in power accountable? How do we create a culture where victims feel safe enough to speak their truth? These aren't easy questions, but we got to talk about them.
Absolutely. This isn't just about Diddy or the music world. This is about understanding that power dynamics exist everywhere. And it's up to all of us to challenge those dynamics and fight for what's right.
And sometimes that means believing the people who are brave enough to come forward, even when it's hard, even when it's someone we thought we knew. Because at the end of the day, real change happens when we listen to those voices and fight for a system that values justice and accountability above everything else.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That's all the time we have for today's deep dive. But keep the conversation going, folks. Challenge the norms and never be afraid to speak truth to power.